from a market perspective, customer is king.
Yeah.
Like you need to build for things that customers are willing to buy and pay for. And that's something that entrepreneurs sometimes we forget.
And what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you were trying to start your company?
Oh, I think we need to take 3 hours about that. Like
Yeah,
being a founder is the hardest, most fulfilling job you can ever do. It's
I agree.
extremely, and it's on so many levels. You don't have money, you don't have customers, you don't
Yeah,
have employees, you don't have the technology, you don't know what accounting is. Like there are so many different things that at the end of the day make it a very, very hard thing. But it is the most fulfilling thing. It's for people of my mentality and I guess your mentality, it is the best thing you can ever do. Probably the
yeah,
best answer is um, keep growing your company without shutting it down. As
yeah,
simple as that sounds.
yeah. Hey, Giannis, welcome to my startup podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot about entrepreneurship. I know you're a professor at NYU, so definitely looking forward to that. And yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Brendan. Nice to be here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation.
I know you mentioned to me briefly over when we were messaging each other that you had experience in the early days of AI starting a company, and we'll definitely jump into that. But before that, do you mind just telling me a bit about your background, how you first got into entrepreneurship, how you ended up in New York City?
Yeah, so my journey is long. So I'm gonna try and hide my age, although I will not be able because I'll tell you some things that will place me in different decades. I'm originally from Greece. I was born, raised, and grew up in Greece. Even studied there. After completing a couple of my undergrad, a couple of early professional engagements, and my MBA in Europe, in Greece, and in Europe. I decided to jump on a global journey. So I left the country some 20 something years ago. I spent a decade around different countries and cities in Europe, and then I moved to New York 12 years ago as an entrepreneur. But to give you a bit of perspective on my journey with AI and with entrepreneurship, because these two things are connected. I first got involved with AI when AI was not even publicly known. Late 90s, beginning of 2000s, when the internet became a thing, we were doing research on how machine learning, data, mathematics, algorithms could drive personalized services on the internet. And what was at the time called interactive television, today it's more like the streaming TV. But basically, back in the day, there was a lot of research and analysis that I was involved with on how we deploy math algorithms, machine learning into this kind of environments. Obviously, at the time, technologically, we were not at the point of being able to deploy those things, so they were very theoretical. I embarked on a journey with more traditional companies because I had this wrong perception that you learn how the big companies do it and then you go and do it yourself. That's not exactly true. That's not exactly accurate. But still, it went very well for me. I stayed in that bigger company world for almost a decade, as I said. I ended up being a regional CEO for a luxury group based out of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. But one beautiful day in my early 30s, I decided that I wanted to go back to my AI roots, back to my entrepreneurial roots. So I left everything behind, and together with a co-founder of mine here in New York, we started an AI company in 2012. At the time, we're not even calling AI because AI was not kind of like sexy or very well known as a term. We used
Right.
to call it big data. Then we became a
Yeah.
machine learning startup, and then eventually we became an AI startup. But irrespective of that, I moved to New York. I built a company here, raised a couple of rounds. I had a global team. I had a global set of customers. But even when that company didn't go exactly as planned, I remained into this early stage AI path. I've worked with B2B AI companies at all stages. Day zero with my company, pre-seed, seed, series A, B, C, D, E, pre-IPO, and then public companies. And I've done it in multiple different industries, from content personalization to supply chain AI to mental health care chatbots to process mining and process intelligence, AI-driven process intelligence, and then to UiPath being, the automation leader and the agentic automation leader now with agentic AI being our focus. So I have a pretty unique yet consistent AI journey, always with startups or with a bit of later stage scale ups.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting that you're able to apply your AI background to different verticals, different fields. Do you find that it was pretty readily easy to transfer your knowledge from one AI application to one in a different industry? Because that's something that I wonder on even for my own AI based startup. If say things don't work out, can I use the same skill set to switch over to a different vertical and apply it there?
It was easy and it was difficult at the same time.
Okay.
It was easy because some of the fundamental thinking, some of the fundamental technologies remain the same. But as you may have heard, AI and agentic AI in particular is now going through this second phase of realization of like, okay, recalibration of what can it actually deliver. And that answer is connected to value, is connected to ROI. So the thing that is easy again is that most of the technological foundations are fairly the same, they're transferable, but identifying the value proposition, identifying the pockets of value and how that is going to generate ROI for any investment, that becomes very tricky. So I would say it was easy for everybody to become an AI expert, especially in the last 2 years or 3 years that it became very popular. It is much harder to secure and identify value in different industries with the implementation of AI.
Got it. So would you recommend, say I did pivot from right now, I'm starting a startup in the dental space. I still plan to continue in that space, but say I did need to pivot to a different vertical, a different space. Would you recommend pairing with someone who has a lot of domain knowledge in that area, or would you just recommend I study up and really get to know those pockets of value so that I can be sure that I'm automating the correct parts that are providing value to the customer?
Domain expertise is always valuable,
Yeah.
but history has shown that it's not an absolute must. Like
Okay.
it's going to accelerate you, it's going to help you do it better, easier, faster. But at the same time, there are people who don't know particular domains, but they execute in the right way and they still win. So I would, my advice, my argument here would be go for understanding the persona, go for understanding the problem, the pain point that you're coming to solve,
Yeah.
uh, and then deploy the right technology. So don't lead with the technology. Don't lead with, hey, I want to do something on AI, and then I'm going to
Right.
try and
Yeah.
figure out what. Try to lead with who do you want to go for? Who is the persona that you're solving for? What are the problems that they're having, and how can you solve them? And then
Right.
see if you have the technological ability and capability to solve those problems.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because, of course, if you're not solving a problem, you're not providing value, then it's not really a true
Absolutely.
business, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so back to the business that you started in 2012, right? What was the main goal, the main problem that you were solving there, and then we can go from there.
We started Rabbit at the time because of the transition of content consumption from in-home to on the move. Like when I tell you this today, which is 13, 14 years later, it sounds like a joke. But back in the day, it was a time where the iPhone and all other smartphones were getting good enough to be able to stream video. iPad and tablets have just done like a huge growth, and people started consuming real content on the move. So that was the premise of why we started the company on how do we make sure that we can provide meaningful content to people on the move. As we dive into this, back to your point, we started identifying more and bigger customer problems that we wanted to solve for. And while we were building, we realized that streaming is going to take over real cable, right? And that's today, again, maybe it sounds like a joke, but 12, 13 years ago, it was the beginning of this trend. We noticed the new generation consuming content on their devices, which means that they are very much on demand, which means that also TV experiences, even at home, are going to be streaming. So we moved from wanting to service or offer personalized content experiences on the move to actually focusing on the personalization aspect, which is how do you make sure that you can watch and experience the things that matter the most to you, or the things that are the most interesting to you out of the content ocean out there, among different streaming services, mobile services, YouTube, and so on and so forth. So we ended up building a white label personalization engine, which could plug in on the back end of any content provider, mostly video,
I
um,
see.
that was able to monitor behavior of users and serve them personalized content according to their behaviors.
Okay, so you guys are focused on a combination of providing the actual streaming service, but then also the content selection algorithm, so that the user remains engaged with content that's part of their interest. Or
Yeah, we tried to do the content side in the early days, but we very soon realized that this is a very expensive game and we are not expert
oh,
content
really?
experts. So we basically became the way Netflix, like your Netflix is very unique to you versus my Netflix. I don't
Right.
know if you, I guess you watch Netflix, everybody does these days.
Yeah.
Uh, and basically Netflix personalizes that based on a set of algorithms in the backend for each one of us. So we were providing a similar solution for any content streamer or content provider who was not able to have their own internal team. So we are a third-party provider of personalization algorithms to this type of content providers.
And but you said that part ended up being expensive. What was
So
so?
the part was expensive was to produce the content. Like
Oh, to produce the con. Oh, that's
yeah,
even
yeah.
okay. To
Yeah,
actually
so,
make it.
so there
Yeah,
are two parts in any content
that makes
experience.
sense.
There are three parts actually. There is
Yeah,
the content itself, the
yeah,
distribution mechanism, and then the personalization aspect. The producing the content is the most expensive part of the equation, and you
yeah.
need to have a certain level of expertise. The distribution mechanism is a matter of marketing. How do you make sure that people come to your platform all the time, whatever that platform may be? And the third one is the back-end technological aspect of making sure that you serve the right content to the right person. And we focused on the third.
And did you have a target customer that you wanted to? So for your white label service, was it like certain industries, like say you could say sports entertainment or certain types of entertainment, or was it just anyone who wanted any kind of a video streaming service? You'd be happy to supply a product.
When we started, it was not too specific because in the early days you don't
Yeah.
know. As you go deeper, you start understanding who is the best product market fit for you, and it ended up being that news and sports don't apply to that because live
Okay.
content is very hard to personalize and it's very hard to monitor. So even the signals you get for your AI estimates are small. They're not very
Yeah.
strong. So news and sports never became a thing. And the second insight was that longer form content at the time was more interesting than short form.
Okay.
Now we live in a very different era today. Today
Yes.
that has changed, right? You look at TikTok, you look even at Instagram Reels, you look at YouTube Shorts. Like all this short form content became the king over the last probably 6, 7, 8 years. 12 years ago, UGC user generated content was not as appealing. There was some, but it was not to the point that it is today.
Right.
So the insight we had at the time, and I'll tell you why I'm getting so detailed in this, is that we were focusing on longer form content. So anybody that has libraries of movies, libraries of TV series, documentaries, and so on and so forth. The reason I'm getting so detailed in this answer, because your question is great, is that one of the reasons that we didn't succeed as much as we wanted, it was a good success, but not to the point that we wanted, is that we were early, and timing with startups is essential. It's very, very
Yeah.
important. So at the time, we were selling to large networks, to people who had content libraries and were trying to move into the stream world, and they were not really moving fast. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so streaming services were not like, there was no Disney, there was no Hulu. Oh, Hulu was starting; it was in the beginning. HBO was trying to figure out what they're gonna do with their service. So all these content providers were trying to figure their streaming strategy, and the consumers, were not necessarily consuming as much streaming. They were still attached to their cable. So I would say we were probably 5 years too early, and that is something that startups should always keep in mind, making sure that you are timed well and that you can adjust to the timing dynamics of your market.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's something that I wonder about for myself. I'm starting an AI voice startup for dentists that will call the insurance company, get information like benefits information, and I wonder myself, what is that? How do I figure out the right timing for the technology and the demand? I mean, right now I think that AI voice is pretty much there. It can have a conversation. There are some hiccups here and there, but by the time it's launched, I feel that the tech will be there. Did you develop a system or a method for figuring out if it's the right time to launch a certain product?
Yes, the system is simple. It's like
Yeah,
talking to your customers, validating that what
yeah,
you're doing actually has a real is coming to serve a real need in the right way. So yes, that's a system. It's like making sure
right.
that you don't do something because you find it interesting, but you do something because you think that there is a market for it.
Yeah, it always gets back to the customer, right? If they find value in something, regardless of how new or old the technology is, then that's what matters, right? So you mentioned that you decided not to bring in or to create content, but I would imagine that's still one of the industry players that you have to work with, content producers.
Mhm.
What are some of the industry players that you work with, creating a streaming service? I'm assuming you have to get content onto your platform, so working with them is one thing. But yeah, just tell me a bit more about the players that you're working with to start a streaming service.
Yeah, things changed, and every 6 months it was a new set of stakeholders as we were pivoting
Okay,
and adjusting. So originally we tried to build our own platform, build awareness, and bring third-party content onto the platform. But we very soon realized that that's a painful process that doesn't really generate any real value. So the pain point that people were identifying, valid, back to my point, when we're talking to our consumers, to our customers, either B2C or B2B, nobody, like most people were saying, they were not saying that I need a new platform. They were saying I need a better content engine or recommendation engine or personalization engine in the
I
platforms
see.
I already use. So we moved from trying to source content very quickly to being able to integrate with content management systems, CMSs, in the backend. So our stakeholders went from the content part of the organizations to the IT parts of the organizations. And at the time, there were newly formed AI teams or data personalization teams that we were working. So we moved from the commercial side of things to the technology side of things.
Okay, so for example, if there was a company that had already a CMS system that has the content, you would come in and provide your machine learning to select the best
Exactly.
content. Okay,
Exactly.
gotcha. Of course, there's a lot of content creation. Well, there's a lot of content creation in New York and in out west in Hollywood. Which did that matter at all? Your geographic location, as far as working with people in the content space?
I mean, there are two centers of gravity. It's New York and Los Angeles. We're based in New York because we realized that the actual technology teams were mostly here and in San Francisco. There were some European teams as well, and we had some customers in Asia and in Latin America. Location was never an issue for this business, as long as you are in one of those centers.
Gotcha. Do you still keep an ear to the ground for the media industry? Do you see it going some new place after streaming, or what's the future hold?
I am passionate about the industry because I've spent quite some time
Yeah,
in it, and I love predicting the future. So years ago, and that's many years ago, I predicted that we will not need landlines any longer. Today, it's
yeah,
very rare to find a landline in anybody's home. Some years after that, I predicted that we will also not need phone numbers, and phone numbers are still a thing, but if I ask you, you're probably calling using FaceTime audio.
yeah. There's really no reason to remember someone's phone number. You could just you're connected with
Exactly,
them on social media. Yeah,
exactly. And even if you see, younger age flirting, like these days, people don't even ask for somebody's number; they ask for their
yeah.
Instagram account, right?
Right.
So you realize that if you think of why we carry those things around, these are unique identifiers. Like a phone number is
Yeah,
a unique identifier. Today we have multiple identifiers that are unique to us. So I'm predicting that phone numbers eventually will go away because we don't really need them if you think about it. Similarly, do you need someone sitting in an office somewhere in Atlanta, in New York, in Los Angeles, wherever they are, to be selecting what you're going to watch every single day, the whole day? So years after the phone number, I predicted that programmed television is going to decline because there is no natural need. There is no human need for somebody to tell you what to watch. You as an
right.
individual,
Yeah,
you don't want to watch what somebody tells you. You want to watch what you want, what you like. I'm definitely seeing the media landscape changing. Programmatic television is declining, and it's going to keep on declining because it's unnatural. It was invented like that, but doesn't mean that it was natural. And the last thing is that I also love the creators
Yeah.
growth. Because again, why do you need someone to be selected by an executive for producing your content when you have the technology yourself to build whatever you want? So I'm foreseeing a much more democratized media environment with very open content creation and content distribution. Now, how is that going to look? There is always going to be some central platform because you still need somewhere to like a distribution system, like call it TikTok, call it social media, call it YouTube. Because YouTube, I don't even consider YouTube a social media necessarily. It's more of a content platform. And then you have your streamers on your video television. So I'm predicting a much more democratized, open-ended distribution network with more democratized content generation by all of us, by everyone.
Yeah. First off, I like what you said about if there's these artificial sort of processes the way that things are done through, and if you recognize those and if they're not aligned with people's needs, then that's a good way to predict. Okay, this won't exist in the future. This will be adapted to be more aligned with the needs. That's a good way to predict the future and see where a product might be good to realign that. And yeah, completely agree. As someone who's trying to do a podcast myself, I hope it's getting more and more democratized. It seems to be that people like very catered content, something that's really relevant to their niche needs. And something interesting, I don't know if there's a direct causation here, but I remember hearing that the viewership for the Oscars was way down. I was wondering,
Mhm.
is that because now celebrity has become democratized? You have all these influencers on the smaller level. You don't have all these. It's not everyone. There's not a monopoly by the A-list celebrities on the that kind of market, and so everyone's sort of tuning into these more minor influencers, and it's kind of competing with the bigger A-list celebrities. So just a theory, but yeah, it was interesting when I heard that.
It's a great theory, and I think if you dive deeper into the numbers, you'll see that the time spent watching consuming content has increased dramatically over the last decade. So if you see how much time people spend on consuming content, the big pie, the big TAM has increased dramatically. But if
Yeah,
you break down the pie, you will see that people are watching much more social media content, much more UGC.
yeah,
And they go less to the movies, right? They go less to the movie theaters. So the whole business model is broken because I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, you like a new movie would come out in a movie theater. It will not show up on TV for the next almost a year. So if we go back, it would then go on video clubs or then DVDs, and then about a year later, it will show up on TV. Then suddenly DVDs became obsolete like maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, like right before COVID or so, you would see a new movie come out on a streaming service 3 months later. Today, 5 years after that, today we have movies that are being launched directly on streaming services, and the movie theater is kind of like an afterthought sometimes, right? So,
yeah.
so there is a shift of prioritization within the bigger consumption pie. Like that's the trend that people should look at on. Yes, it is a growing market, but how do I go about it as a provider, as a startup, as an innovator in that space?
Yeah, I agree from firsthand experience about the movies. I mean, to me now, it used to be growing up, I went to the movies just to see the latest movies, but now I find myself going more just for the experience. But if I want
Mhm.
to just see a movie, I would just wait for it to be streamed. But I go to the theaters more for the experience than for to see, oh, there's this new content that I need to see. So it definitely it's shifted there for sure. And what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you were trying to start your company?
Oh, I think we need to take 3 hours about that. Like
Yeah,
being a founder is the hardest, most fulfilling job you can ever do. It's
I agree.
extremely, and it's on so many levels. You don't have money, you don't have customers, you don't
Yeah,
have employees, you don't have the technology, you don't know what accounting is. Like there are so many different things that at the end of the day make it a very, very hard thing, but it is the most fulfilling thing. It's for people of my mentality, and I guess your mentality, it is the best thing you can ever do, but it's not easy. So I don't want to give you one answer. Probably the
yeah,
best answer is um, keep growing your company without shutting it down. As
yeah.
simple. as simple as that sounds.
Yeah, no, that's the number. I always ask that question, and or as far as like, well, my next question was going to be, what's your best tip for entrepreneurs out there starting a company? But it sounds like it's persistence, just continuing to grow the company and persevering around the challenges. Is that it?
Yeah,
Would you say?
I think that there are two angles to that, and
Yeah,
probably this is a good way to summarize our conversation. From a market perspective, customer is king.
yeah,
Like you need to build for things that customers are willing to buy and pay for. And that's something that entrepreneurs sometimes will forget. From a behavioral perspective, perseverance and persistence is key. It will not be a straight line. It will not,
right.
it's gonna have ups and downs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely great advice. I like breaking it down and how you broke it down into character versus the customer side of things. Of course, customer is always important, but you have to have the character to persist and find those customer needs and those pockets of value. And I always love to think back to, I read a biography of Jeff Bezos, and one time when he was, I guess throughout his years in the boardroom at Amazon, they would have an empty seat left open, quote unquote, for the customer. To always remember the customer's at the table here too, and always to consider their needs, their values when making any kind of decision. So, and of course, Amazon is a very customer centric company, has done very well. So it's always yeah, you have to incessantly pay attention to the customer needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Giannis, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. I've already learned a lot, and I'd love to learn a lot more from you in the future. I'm sure you have a lot of great lessons to teach from your experience. So, yeah, happy to have you.
Brandon, thank you so much for giving me the time and good luck with everything.
Thank you.